You talked about cancel culture in your book.
Yeah.
You said cancel culture started out as a good thing, amplifying voices that have been silenced for far too long. We saw the power of the people on a granular level. The Me Too movement was long overdue, but in its wake, there was inevitable backlash. Heightened sensitivity morphed into what I call predatory listening.
Yeah.
Finely tuned talent for sniffing out transgression. The outrage industry is good at rooting out unconscious bias, and that's not a bad thing unless there's no room for accuracy or nuance. Without some level of discernment, it's like a touchy smoke alarm. It doesn't care if you burn the toast or a meth lab or set a meth lab on fire. It's going to make the same ear-splitting racket.
Mm-hmm.
You said in the clickbait economy, anyone, not just celebrities or politicians, might be one ambient tweet away from the free fall where viral takes on its original meaning: pathological, toxic, and dangerous. Cancel culture is a very weird thing, and it's something relatively new for people of our age.
Mm-hmm.
Before a few years ago, if the news didn't report it on a national level, you could get away with damn near anything. Now you're right. One tweet could go mega viral. And I've had these types of tweets, and I've had both positive and negative effects from these tweets. What is your take on cancel culture?
Well, I believe it started as consequence culture.
Consequence culture. Okay.
It was the consequences for people who exhibited bad behavior. And I thought it was a way to sort of correct the ills of society. But then it became too much. It became, cancel culture. And I also write about DEI. And I said all those things are good unless it becomes a religion, right? And people start, worshiping, the folks who are carrying it out. And America is about redemption. It should be about redemption. We were just talking about reparations. So it's about redemption and restoration. And it shouldn't be about canceling people for something that they did 50 years ago or what have you. That should not, I don't believe that should happen generally. And I think, obviously, it's a case-by-case basis, right? If you are, someone who, 50 years ago or however many years ago helped with the Holocaust, yes, you should face consequences. But I think generally people should not be going back into people's pasts trying to find things. I do think that it has silenced a lot of very needed voices, like Al Franken. Like, did the Democrats have to get rid of Al Franken? No, it was a mistake. And all those people who were like, oh, Al Franken had to go. It's like, why are you doing it? Why are you eating your own over something that is minor, right? Or something, or over something that that people can get over it, right? And I think that happens a lot from Democrats. Democrats eat their own. Republicans stand by their people. Look at all the shit that Donald Trump says. He should have been canceled at least 500, if not 1,000 times.
Yeah, I mean, D.L. Hughley, he spoke about that in our last interview. He said from his point of view, he doesn't think that Republicans really love Donald Trump. They think he's a useful idiot.
Yeah. They think he speaks for them. He's like a Trojan horse. They get their policies and what they believe across because, right, he's the thing that goes in and does it when they're like, they're hiding behind him.
Look at, for example, what's happening now. You have the Diddy situation.
Yeah. But look at what happens to people. You have the Diddy situation, but look at what happens to people. And I'm not condoning, a power imbalance when people take advantage of that. Most people meet at work, right? And so how do you sort of govern that when people have romantic relationships? People are at work a lot. They used to be in offices a lot more now. Mm-hmm. They would develop romantic relationships. They would get married or whatever. And so what is, like, where do you draw the line? What is a Me Too moment, right? A power imbalance if someone is pushing yourself over, fine. But if someone asks you out at work, mm-hmm. right, and you go and say, oh, I felt uncomfortable because Vlad asked me out. That's not a Me Too.
No, you could say no.
But if you continue to do it.
If I ask you out 30 more times, then it's a problem.
That's a problem.
Right.
But the first time you say, no, I'm not interested, and you move on, that's not, I don't consider that a Me Too moment.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I'm trying to remember who said this. But back in the day, if you were a celebrity, you had certain level of advantages. Mm-hmm. People would cover up, your indiscretions and so forth. In 2024, I feel there's an opposite effect. If you're a celebrity on any level, everything gets amplified and put under a microscope.
That's true.
So, for example.
But go on.
Well, and look, and I'm not justifying the actions. I'm just trying to prove an overall point. Law enforcement, especially these days, is extremely reactive as opposed to proactive. R. Kelly, I don't think would be in prison and sentenced to 30 years if Surviving R. Kelly never came out.
I don't know if I believe that.
He beat his criminal case back in the day, and he was living his life doing whatever. That documentary put a huge microscope over him, and suddenly he was charged with a bunch of crimes. I think with the Diddy situation, if it wasn't for the Cassie lawsuit going public, I don't think there'd be a federal indictment to go along with it. If you look at the timing of it, it is what it is. Same thing with Bill Cosby. A lot of this stuff happened 50 years ago, 40 years ago. The lawsuits were literally civil lawsuits. They weren't criminal lawsuits that turned into criminal indictments and so forth. Am I saying these weren't bad people and did bad things? I'm not saying that. I think a lot of them did do bad things. But if you bring me a woman, and I'm 51 years old, and she said that in 1989, Vlad did something to me, I may not even know who this woman is. There's no proof behind it. I have no idea. And suddenly I am painted a certain type of way because someone makes an accusation that didn't have a police report during that time, may not even have met me in real life. You see what I'm saying? And this is where I have a problem with.
Okay, all right. So listen, I'm not going to sit here and make an excuse for Diddy or R. Kelly or Bill Cosby or whatever. Bad behavior is bad behavior, and
yes,
people deserve to suffer the consequences if they have done it. Yes, I think that it is, when you're a celebrity, when you're a celebrity, that there's obviously more press around it and people are more aware of it. But you also have a responsibility to know that you have influence over people that most people do not have, that people react to you in a certain way. And so you have to be aware of that. That's why I call it consequence culture. Just because you have the ability to be able to, influence people and sometimes unduly influence people, you should be aware of that. And I think that the Me Too movement has made people more aware of that and more aware not to abuse their power.
Right.
So not to abuse it, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that does happen, and I think people have, obviously taken the opportunity to capitalize on certain things. But I think that happens few and far between.
But when it does happen,
But when it does happen to you, it is huge and it's awful. And I write about that. I do write about that in my book, and I talk about getting rid of people for, that you should not have been for unfair reasons. I do talk about that.